Okay, welcome into your restorative therapy today. And we're going to start with a way to reach out from our center, from our ribs, from our pelvis. So we're going to start with a supported bridge. You're going to have a blanket at the back that's at the lowest fold. So I don't want you to have too much bulk under your head. Push it far back so when you lower down, you anticipate some padding, but you don't want to have you don't want to grab the blanket and pull it up. You want to anticipate to open up the chest. Okay. The bolster is the largest part of this one. So we got a bolster lengthwise, center of the mat. Okay. So just place it down. You want to sit on the very edge. If you got a wall space, you'll have it to your feet and you'll have a rolled up blanket or a bolster roll, like the round bolster at the base for your lower leg parts. And I say leg parts because it might be your heel, it might be your calf. You kind of have to nudge around to decide, do I like my calves to be pressed into? Do I want my heels to lift up? The challenge if your heels are lifting up too much is that you might hyperextend. The back of the knee might get too much pull. So use some padding under your legs, but let's figure it out. So sit at the edge of your bolster, like you're going to go sledding, right? So you're sitting on the edge. Then when you lower back, if you've got a wall to touch into, that can be really helpful for the back muscles, for your core to connect, for your hip flexors. So when you guide yourself back, if you can push a little bit into the wall, and then of course you're going to push and then try to extend. So my feet are not at the wall anymore, although I really do like this pose with my feet at the wall. It just isn't working out. But what I want you to work with is that the bolster is as high up into your back as possible. So if you reach back to your neck, it's off of the ground, right? Cervical spine is off. The occiput's going to touch on, so the shelf at the back of your head is touching onto the blanket. And there's that nice arch through the upper spine. The opposite arch we generally live with during the day, right? So anything that's different is what we do. Now, if your back is feeling concerned about this angle, you can always opt for the knees bending and the feet on the floor to begin. So either legs extend down or knees bend, feet on the ground, and then take a sandbag on the top of the thighs. Okay, so as we orient the circulation into our abdominal connectivity into our hip flexors, right? This whole kind of psoas layer of reach. Experience the simple front body opening. Just simple. The front body is elongating, and then my sand is on the tops of my thighs, and my arms stretch open. Okay, if you feel like you're too far back on the bolster, like your shoulders are now pushing the floor, then I would recommend that you roll to the side, come back up, try again so you're really at the base of the bolster as you lower back. I think the feet at the wall could be helpful, like I mentioned, for guidance and support in the back. But just find some moments here to arrive with the circulation and the span across the ribs, feeling the lateral motion of the rib cage, the lateral movements. And just a self-study of where, oh, where can I release, holding. You might even have one foot touch the wall and one foot not. So your work is to create some balance. So maybe you kind of move your hips a little bit, kind of orient yourself on the props, and then orient into your in-breath through the nose, and relaxing on the out-breath. From exhalation, I like to say, comes relaxation, but it also sometimes in the context of a class experience, it can appear to be kind of serious, like from exhalation comes determination to get to the next inhale and so on. So just noticing, I this time of year, I enjoy like setting time aside to do this because I get distracted with all of the outer universe options. So just give your body the time to kind of rejuvenate, restore, and replenish. You know, if the knees are bending, some of us might have the bottoms of the feet on the floor. Give it a try to extend the legs in the last few moments of this one. I also want to offer the idea that you can come into a cobbler's pose towards the end of this timing on supported bridge. So you might work with that one to just kind of feel, first thing is that the ribs have that natural levity, right? There's a lift up because of the bolster beneath to support. I love to feel that my shoulders kind of grip into the bolster. And then when they position towards my back line, it spans open the ribs. So if you don't want to erase this for the next few moments, stay with it. And then if you want to try cobbler's pose, just walk the feet in towards the bolster and bring the soles of the feet together, the knees out. Yeah, the sandbag might be a little bit bothersome. You can just slide it off, but if it feels relatively helpful, you can keep it. Okay, so just the feet maybe together, the knees apart. Feel that arch through the whole back area, right? It's not just the base, the basement of my spine. The arch flows from the back, and then you can feel that front body elongate. Okay, let's take just a few more moments, either soles of the feet together or bottoms of the feet on the floor or legs extending. You know, extremities are nice, right? When they work and they're cooperating with your mental assignment, right? It's interesting to feel how we can balance the two lower parts. Okay, kind of gratitude for having that ability to move into them, but also feel if you can start coordinating the upper and lower body now. So if you've got the knees pointing up or out, I want you to guide the knees towards each other. It means the bottoms of the feet are on the floor, and then taking the sand away, and with caution, I would say, this is the challenging switcheroo, I think, of all of them, of all the restoratives I can think of. When I have to pivot my bolster under my back to horizontal. So I sometimes think that the tactic of visualizing it is useful. Okay, I have to turn, it's not going to turn on its own. I don't have a knob on my back that pivots. So as I walk the feet a little wider, and I have to be careful of the knees. So I'm going to keep my heels really high up. Try to work with that pressure through the balls of the feet. And if you were to do this with the hand, right, the wrist is a little vulnerable, but with our feet, we can kind of anchor and then use the thigh muscles and then slide a little bit back on your bolster. Okay, so now your shoulder blades touch the ground or the upper back, maybe not the whole blade. And then as you lift up, you're going to just use your hand to push the bolster across. So push it so it's horizontal under the back across the mat. And then I would scoot the back of the pelvis on the bolster so that now when you lie on the bolster across the back, your seat is right to the edge of the bolster, right? You don't want your bolster, definitely don't want it too far down. I think that's the one thing I see people complain on their back is, my back doesn't like this. Well, the bolster is too low. So you want to work with the rule of the rib that Judith Lassiter talks about. So you're going to feel some of the lower ribs kind of anticipate that arch. So take the knees up, the feet off the floor, wiggle side to side, get a ball, have some fun. Place the ball center of the knees and kind of think about, you know, if you bicycle your legs, you're going to be moving, alternating the legs. But right now I want you to kind of feel the ability to spin the ball a little bit. I'll turn the awareness of this a different direction so you can see. So my blanket, I'm going to keep it low, although many of us will place it a little higher. But when you have the ball center of the knees, right, you're going to roll the ball. So you're activating, right, these inner leg points. Of course, I got points on the ball. How many points do you have on the ball? What do you think? How many? I don't even know. I'd have to put like a mark on one and then start counting. So feel when you roll, the hips are lifted, the spine is a little bit of movements, okay? Now you're gonna center, so it's just still, and then let the knees fall side to side, arms spread out to the shape of a T, so straight open, and then knees side to side. You get to decide how much your hip lifts when you lean your knees to one side. So if you find that you are kind of feeling the excitement of stretching the chest, you might really let the knees kind of fall over, maybe touch a block, or maybe you just let it be in free space. Sometimes the block is nice to have besides your short end of the bolster so that thigh touches onto it. Yeah, so work the abdominals. Now, if you're working on things like forward bend poses, trying to get a little better range of motion, this would be an excellent thing to work on. You don't have to have your bolster under the pelvis necessarily if it's too much arch. You could do this without the bolster and get a lot out of the movement that you're crafting into the hip and the side muscles, right? So working on the side band. Take a few more breaths here. Are you breathing or just doing? Okay, feel the approach so you're stretching your back. And keep the movement active so as we cross through the center, the hip lifts up. And then as you come back into the middle, you get to decide, bring the knees towards the chest for a moment, take the ball out. And then as you take the position of the feet back onto the floor, I like to kind of reset and make sure my bolster position feels satisfying, especially like get everything set up because we're going to start to work with the belt in variations of the legs up. Okay, so take a belt. First things first, have the knees into that hips distance, and I'm going to anticipate that I will take the legs to go up, but kind of feel where in this kind of pelvic tilt position. This is clearly a bridge pose, but not a bridge too far, right? I have and I'm not really using my glutes a lot to hold this. I'm just relaxed on my bolster. So it's nice to find shapes that you can just be supported. The contour of the prop supports your shape. You can just exist. Okay, so I'm going to put my blanket one more fold so it's under just my head, not under my shoulders. Okay, and then as you bring the right knee in towards the chest, hold onto the back of the thigh, let the left leg extend down. The blanket could be really a nice treat to have under your heel or your calf. Might be a surprise that it's there. Okay, so we're not using the belt quite yet, and I want you to switch sides. So left knee in, right leg extends down. I'm gonna get familiar with the back space stretching. Just one leg at a time. And then as you bring the knees pointing up, at least you think they are, they're probably slanting back, but try to have them so they're not pushing into your chest. So you can activate kind of the low back, right? The posterior core. And then take a belt and let's go with a wide stance at the beginning. So I have a belt buckled up. So I've got a really wide loop. I just keep finding the tail of it. And I want you to scoop up your feet. And if your belt is, it's kind of ambitious right now for me. This is a little ambitious. I'm going to tighten it down so that my stance is, kind of the same stance I would have if I was standing. and taking a wide stretch. But this is probably about my stance, maybe a little bit, not quite so wide. So you evaluate, you take a few moments to decide, personalize it. And the evaluation might include things like how relaxed your feet feel, right? If it's sensitive in the legs and they're shaky, bend the knees, tighten it out, make the belt a little bit less wide. But you can also do things like hold the belt with the side of it closest to you and take the same shape. And some people really like that. You just feel that it reinforces the effect into the back of the legs. You might feel safer for your back, maybe less vulnerable. You might just like the excursion of letting the legs be and bring the elbows back on the floor to goalpost position. But create an effective kind of reaction here with your breath wave. So feel, even if you feel like your back is sliding a little bit, because it's a different position for our shoulders than we did a few minutes ago. So you want to try to actively broaden out through the chest, but relax the tension in the shoulders, right? Don't feel like you have to activate pushing them as far out. Just let the chest open. Maybe close your eyes so you can kind of feel your perception of being upside down, giving the legs some time to kind of start to drain. Just letting your heart realize that you're starting to head into a really good heart healthy sequence, some good stuff for the heart. Belly lifts and relaxes. And now bend the legs. And then as you reach up to the belt, it might not be the easiest grasp right now. You have to kind of feel where both of the legs bend. And then you can even hold the tail of it to get it towards you. But as you pull, slide the feet to each other, and then feel the legs with that lift and the flex of the feet. And see if you can have a little separation of the feet for a moment and just noticing your feet flexing, feeling that reach of the bottoms of the feet. Such a good position here to just steady your attention. Then for me, I kind of feel a little bit of challenge in my back to hold the shape. So what we're going to do is use the levers here, the lower levers. They're all going to be used, all levers. So get some leverage. Push the right foot up to the belt and then bend the left knee. And then as the left leg lowers down, you're going to take the extension of that left thigh and then maybe kind of wag your tail a little bit so you can feel pretty centered. Who knows, maybe you need to move the bolster a little further up. Okay, remember, we don't want to move it further down usually for a back. Okay, so we take our sand, if we're using the sand here, and we'll place it to the front of the left thigh. And I want you to push the sandbag so it's at the kind of the thigh peak, right, the thigh lid. Okay, so as we hold on, we got our belt in the loop. We might need to make the loop, bigger, smaller. You just don't know until you give this one a try. But as we reach the belt up and we try to get the belt towards the back of our head, if it's feeling like you're pulling your leg, you feel like it's jarring the leg muscles, you might want to tighten. Well, actually, I need to make mine looser, huh? You can kind of see, Nicole needs more of a belt. All right, so reach your belt to the back of your head. Find where the level of tension is so that your back leg is elongating. I'm saying more and more belt. Okay, there we go. So I think the key for this is the verticality with the leg. I don't think it's a great idea to pull the leg further back. It's about this, the science of this is the draining, right? So it's not like we're working on openings, releasings, not like super stretchings. Okay. So when the leg is inverted, just like you would do legs up, like legs up the wall, Viparita Karani, you would probably have your leg kind of straight up. Now, what I always find interesting is I'll look in the video and I'll go, oh, I actually think I had it straight up, but it was a little farther back. So probably your best advice here is to let your foot push, and then you might contract your quadricep like you're kind of pulling up the top of the thigh, and then relax it. Okay. Feel the vine of the back of the thigh, even though you don't think of your back of your leg as a spine, I know, but it does have an interesting kind of line of energy. For me, I feel this at the attachment at the top of the leg a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of swim around with a little bit of movement. Maybe loosen up my belt. Remember, you don't want to anticipate pushing your foot over your head, right? So maybe a little more traction is attractive for the leg. The feeling should be kind of, oh, I just got a leg up. Okay, sand on the left thigh, as I mentioned, you can move it around, you can bring it higher, lower. Left leg, I like to have this on the blanket, personally. If you don't use that, you can always put your foot against the wall. You know, with the arms in a relaxed position, either they're in goalpost or they're a little below the heart. The idea is that it's a heart healthy pose, so I don't want my arms to be overhead. I want my heart rate to slow down, my blood pressure to lower. So let your spine start to feel the sensation so slightly. You know, if you feel how your head pushes back into the belt, if it starts to feel too much in the neck, you can always bring your hands inside the belt to the side of your head, and then just stretch the belt back and hold on to it with the webbing of the thumb and the index. So you're not gripping your belt per se, you're just sliding it to a convenient spot, and then letting your brain relax back on the blanket. Okay, let's start to shift sides. So those of you with the belt to the back of your head, just start to move it out, and then get a feel of the movement of the lower abdominals. You know, when you switch sides, just let that sand shift it away. I don't think you want to try to leave it, but I like to sometimes put it on across the abdominal area, just straight across. And then as I move the left leg up, the reason I like this is it kind of holds this for my back muscles to stay safe. Otherwise, I tend to flinch in my back, okay? So as your left foot comes up, then the right leg goes down. One must go up, one must go back down, and then turn the sand to the top of that right thigh. Push. Okay, and as you go into that second side, it's the same brain. Okay, so when you reach up, you might find different ways of supporting this traction. You might find, oh, I have the same length, I'm going to try. Maybe it doesn't feel like the appropriate lengthening. Maybe you need the belt a little bit more slack, a little tighter. It's a different hamstring. Okay, so it may have some attention to detail at like one side of the back of the leg. Maybe the knee feels different. If it's a zero knee feeling, you know, think of that as a pretty positive thing here. But sometimes if I have my knee's acting up, this inverted patterns can be wonderful and helpful. And sometimes they can add some discomfort. So you've got to kind of weigh the positives here and decide how far your leg should go up. Okay. So for instance, if your knee is bothering you a little bit, you might not have the belt behind your head. So that way you can kind of move your leg a little bit downwards or back up, right? You kind of feel as the draining happens, right? The fluid retention. You know, it might feel areas in the knee that kind of light up. Okay. So you decide that the arms are down, the sand is on my right thigh now. And as the weight of my brain relaxes back in either the belt or the blanket, you decide. You can rest your head on the blanket and hold the belt, or have it holding. If it's holding the back of your head, not that you have to do more than that, but just notice how interesting this could be for your face, your jaw, relaxing the facial muscles. Just kind of visualize that your head is being held, and you can soften in these naturally tight spots in our upper back, like the trapezius, these upper back muscles that attach actually here to the occiput, right? The trapezius attaches there. So if the leg moves a little bit, that could be interesting. Finding stillness might be good too. Breathing. Just maybe some of us will feel the bottom of the foot and the different areas of intensity wherever the belt might be. So you might switch it, right? You can always kind of use your hold on the belt and move your belt around on the foot. But before we come out of this one, give it a try to bring your hands inside the belt to the side of your head. And as you hold on, you're going to slide the belt off your head, let your head rest on the blanket. And then, maybe feel the foot flex. This one can be kind of funny because your belt gets into one kind of line on the bottom of the foot. And then kind of squirming it around just doesn't feel, it gets set. It gets kind of settled in. So let's just shift our focus for a moment. Reach up with your right hand to the belt and then just cross the left leg to the right. We're kind of truly doing the restoratives today. So feel that crossover. If you're limited by a wall space or something, that might be actually a benefit to you, because you can kind of settle your foot to it. But you've got to remember on the second side to have the same range. Now, feel how the knee can bend. Again, caution on knee joints, just a little itty bit. But when the knee bends, sometimes the fibers on the side of the leg don't stretch with it. So these side areas on the leg can be really important to work to help out our knee. The stuff that gets crowded down here to the knee. So as you let your sand slide off if you haven't already, and then kind of swoop back in center. Okay, now you're going to take the belt off of that foot and just slide the right foot in so the bottom of the foot is on the ground, the left ankle crosses to the right knee. Just take a passive figure 4. So you're going to adapt into the thigh pieces, right? The particulars of a thigh, from a hip to the side range. If it's too much on your knee, just let the knee lift up a little bit. You don't have to overdo it. But you could definitely get a little stretch in your ankle this way, even if my knee is pointed up. Okay, and then this time, as we uncross that left foot, we're going to step down and we'll go to the other foot. We are going to do the leg crossover, I know, but since we're already here, we'll go backwards on the side. Right ankle to left knee, right knee releases open. Yeah, you can go on any excursion you want. You can kind of rock a little side to side. I mean, it's fun to kind of feel how these bones from our hip joint guiding down to the knee joint, you know, how they motion, just kind of loosening up in these fibers. I like it, especially at kind of a lesser degree of pressure. But it does find some awareness in my quad. It's kind of interesting with my foot on my left leg. You know, I can feel the bulk of the quad. It's not that bulky, I know, but I can feel the bone and the muscle a little bit. The muscle's kind of about 20% of its action here. And as you bring the right knee into center, just take your belt below the right foot. Give yourself lots of slack on this. Don't overstretch it. Just let the right leg reach up. Left leg relaxes down on the blanket or bolster or floor, and cross the right leg to the left. Use your left hand. Give a little bit of a pull. Find that there's two places that are pulling. There's your arm seems to be the thing that's exerting the force. But you could think your leg is exerting a little bit. They're both levers. You know, the leg is a lever, the arm is a lever. These are extremities. And, you know, you think your arm's doing the pull, but I don't know, what if the foot was holding the belt like your hand held the belt? Not quite the way that we live, but I like to think about my foot being a little bit more flexible. Kind of move it around in the belt. Okay. All right, now, when we take the leg back into center, take your leg back, bend the right knee. Maybe you exert a little bend and straighten just for kicks. Okay. Okay, now the side layer of my leg, the front, I want us to bring some information into these areas. Okay, so as we bend the knee, you're going to slide your belt off your foot and then bring your knees to point up. And then finally, we're going to push the bolster away from under the pelvis. You might have some interruption at the base with your blanket. I don't think it should be really harmful, but if you don't like your blanket down there, you can always kick it and get it to the side so it's out of your way. I like to see what ends up happening with the blanket personally. See, where is this going to end up? Okay, so the feet on the bolster. Now take your belt. If it's still buckled up, perfect. Okay, what you're going to do, and I think scooping up the feet works. Some people find that super awkward, so they actually unbuckle and bring it around the thighs. It just depends on how your hip and your back feel. But what you're going to place the belt, so you got it in a loop, you don't have to skirt off to the side. I don't want you to have to do that. Your feet are still on the bolster. But I want you to see, so I'm going to have my belt, so I tighten it down so it's across both thighs, okay? And it is kind of center thigh. Okay. And some instructions are oftentimes close to the knee because we don't want the knees to go out too far. But lately, I would say probably the last 10 years, it's been instructed to go ahead and let the knees move out and the feet turn out slightly. So I find that I just want to make sure my knees are comfortable. So that's kind of where I draw the line. So keep in mind, you're on your back, right? Your feet are on the bolster. You got your head on a blanket and your belt is around the thighs. It's holding, okay? I hope that makes sense. So when you're on your back, that has been determined. You got a block nearby. Yeah, you probably just need your block. Okay, so as you push into your feet, you got to bolster so that your hips can get up. Well, it's your circulation goes up your back a little better when your feet are on something, right? Whether they're on a chair, at a wall, you can go up higher on the back. So and play with that. If you decide, well, I wonder if that's true, you could go to a wall and walk your feet up and go, oh, now I'm up in a shoulder stand. So when you lift up, just kind of touch to the side of the thigh, right? This is an important area, right, for our health, right, for our bones. We don't want this to be pretty strong. So this, I think, is still one of those top 10 pose practice points. I think this is important. So I'm going to lower my blanket height. I definitely don't want too much bulk at my neck. So I'm going to lift up and then I'm just going to lower. I hope you've already lowered down. No competition on this. Okay. So feel that the thighs push out into the belt, and you determine how far out the legs are going to go. But be warned that I don't want the knees so far out that now I'm not getting a stretch in my thighs. So do feel casual about it, but next time you lift up, I want you to kind of push out, even if you pop the belt, that's good, you're working, but push out a little bit so your thigh muscles are exerting, and see what it feels like if you kind of relax your rear. Okay, so you really are activating the legs a lot. Okay, now take a block, place it so it's at the second setting, if that's possible. If the lowest setting is the only setting you can do, that's fine. Okay, but as you lift up, you got to exert a little bit to get in your glutes to get the block under there. It's under the back of my pelvis, straight across, right? It's not pointing into my sacrum, right? It's straight across. So now when I have my hips up, I just relax onto the block. Okay. I love that I don't tighten the belt down for me. Now I may have some memory of this. We would tighten the belt, really exert, but see if you can be there and let your shoulders motion back. Get busy with this movement in the kind of the rafters of the ribs. Okay. Once your hips have decided, I got a home on a block, the legs have a belt. You don't have to spend energy on those parts at this point, but you might find the shoulders rolling down and in. It seems kind of awkward, doesn't it, with the elbows kind of trying to go in towards the sides, but it's a good place to kind of manifest that support for the heart, the throat, endocrine glands, the circulation. It's okay if you feel the neck stretch a little bit. It's also okay if you feel the back of your skull like you could move a little bit. Just don't turn your head on this one. I know you might be looking at the screen, but this is not a good one to be rotating your neck and then holding your head to one side. See if you can, if you need to move your head a little bit, so be it. But once you get there, your shoulders are back, and you're actually trying to reach your arm at a time, one arm at a time, down towards the bolster. We're not going to touch the bolster. I think we're pretty far. Okay, but feel the arms reach down. Okay, the arms are reaching, and another way we used to do this is we would use a belt around the elbows to keep them so close. Not taught very often now, so just too restrictive. So let your shoulders try to steady. It's hard on it's definitely hard on the bicep tendon to do that, so we're not going to put a belt around our arms. But take a few moments, just settle before the back of your pelvis gets tired of it. And then feel if you can push down into the feet, and action really in the tailbone. Push into your feet and feel if you can motion the tailbone under a little bit. Lift up the hips. Yep. Hips go up. So you might still feel the block a little bit, but I bet it goes away. Close enough. Okay. So the thigh lids are stretching. And then I want you to loosen up your elbow and then slide the block away. You don't need it for now. And I want you to roll down, so just lower the spine. You might feel one side of the back kind of slide out further or creep in further. Yeah, the skin moves, The skin connects it all. Okay, now as you press down, feel that dermal. I love to get from this into rolling on the ball. So, because we want to find that kind of that dermal kind of neural connection, right? So as you unbuckle, you can bring your knees in, you can reach down, maybe you can get a hold of the belt just with your feet on the bolster, who knows? Unbuckle, and then take a ball, and I would just bring it over to the left hip or right hip, whichever hip, and then see how little you have to get to lift up, and then roll it under, because remember, you have to push into the ball, so you don't need to lift your hips that high. Put it under the left rear, kind of the upper back piece of that rear, and then push into the ball and glide massaging into the glutes, one glute at a time. Okay, now as you roll, right, you're practicing kind of moving the skin around the muscle. Use a soft ball. If you tend to use tennis balls or other ones that are a little bit more tense, you could say, the tense ball. I like the soft one because it is still tense as far as the ball itself, but it's a wider surface to roll on. Right, and these are really nerve-rich areas. So the little knobs on the ball, right, that's helpful to glide and get that sensory input. Okay, now as you go to the other side, you might stop for a moment on the ball, kind of lean your knees a little bit to the left, just kind of nuzzle into the ball where it's right at the attachment, right at the hip. Maybe you feel kind of the start of some of those muscles, the piriformis. Who knows, you're going to feel a place that's nerve rich, really. Like it feels like there's a knot. And then you're going to come back, knees center and pointing up, and then just roll the ball to the other rear. And as you push into it, just find a space of pressure that works for you. So maybe you want the ball a little lower, maybe you want it further out to the side. It's really up to you. Now, you don't have to have it in the same exact spot on the second side. It might go a little bit farther up. If it goes too high on the back, right, it doesn't feel like a good massage. Gotta find it where it's kind of sensory rich areas, right? Nerve rich is what you call it. So the right foot could lift up off the bolster, and you can feel how the attachment of the lever is so interesting when you roll. It feels leverish. Okay. And take a few more motions, maybe pressure and movement. You have to figure out a way to make one word out of those two, pressure and movement. Can't think of how to join those two words well. That sounds good. Someday. Okay. So when you do glide, remember you're gliding and shearing across tissues. Okay, so as we're going to take a deep hip crossover. We've done this one before, and today's sequence is going to be, we're going to do hip crossover and then side sage. And I find that this is really effective with people one-on-one. They tend to like this sequencing a lot, so we'll finally do it in this. But when you do press, see if you can push and go all the way across kind of the belly of the muscle. And if it feels so pleasant to keep doing that, you can keep rolling. Up to you. Now, taking the ball out for some of us, we're going to push our bolster to the right side of our mat. And when you cross over this blanket at the bottom, I don't think it's going to be really a great thing to have at the feet. Some people might like their foot on the blanket. You decide. But let that left leg swing over to the bolster. Maybe you need the blanket on the bolster. And maybe that's what you're going to need. And then first the ball at the sacrum. If you don't have a ball, don't worry about putting anything there. And then second, if you have sand, you're going to place that on the outer left thigh. Put that sand across so that you're supporting the balance of your hip, but also supporting muscles that connect into the thigh and into the abdominal. So you might have to kind of move the sand a little bit left to right, and then feel like, maybe push the bolster. Find a way to reach the left arm open. You know, you might even be using that blanket. Who knows? You have your arm on the blanket. Never know, you can play around with your props class to class, huh? Shift it around. Now, I like to try to get the arm to reach the extended left arm because it's the connectivity from my left arm to my left hip, down to the thigh. So maybe a blanket kind of helps you get traction and move the arm and let it stick. Right? So if I have a little roll, I kind of hook my elbow and I play with the arm, the appendage support. Who knows, maybe we're starting a new idea with this. The blanket under your head should have a little bit of height. And make it just right. Okay, little height, not flat like the bridge. Okay, that was okay for bridge, but you want enough support so the neck and the shoulder. So something underneath might be good for the shoulder, it might not for everybody. But come into the hip crossover and let the spine naturally feel its curves. Now, so feel the smoothness of the pec reaching that left upper side of the chest. And then just kind of feel the corner of the shoulder blade, trying to relax and move just downwards on the back line. I mean, it lives like that in your back, I know, but when you're on your back itself, you can work on kind of the contour of it so that you can open the chest. That's what I mean. So if I stand up, my chest tends to drop forward generally. It's an exaggeration, but you can kind of see it in people, right? But when I'm on my back, this is why floor-based, twists are so good for us. This is a really smart position for my spine care, for my chest opening, for my respiratory muscles. Yeah, so let's go into the next side in a few moments. Find your way there. If your arm is getting a little tingly, it's time to come out, right? Definitely the blood is moving out, so you need to move. it's not getting a nourishment. Okay, so take the ball out of the sacrum area, slide the sand to the belly, and as you bring the feet to a good width, you're going to push into them to center your back. So feet on the floor can help center my back. That's kind of a basic 101 knowledge, right? So the bottoms of the feet touch down, I grab a hold of my bolster, and when I take it to the next side, you might find the sand on the belly is a nice thing to kind of work with between sides. We've done it twice today. This is the second time we've done this kind of maneuver. So it was different with brain float because we had our hips up, but now the hips are flat and down. Now I'm going to take the left leg and kind of curve it. So I'm going to relax my left knee and then swing the right leg on top of the bolster. Again, some of you may have used your blanket on top of the bolster as well. Some of us have maybe the blanket on the side. Who knows? You got a blanket on the side last time. I think you should probably have a blanket on the side on this second one. Okay. All right. Okay, blanket on out. Chest open, head can definitely turn to the right. Okay, and creating movement of the breath, right? That's kind of your main mover. You use it as a stretching tool. But fussing around is okay. You might start to get into the shape and then just realize something isn't quite supported. You might move the sand higher, lower, move it on the ground if you don't like it. And feeling that bend of the knee on the top, the bend of the knee on the bottom. And then all the curves that go from a leg into a pelvis, into a spine. Feel the difference in the shoulder, right? Noticing if it is just pressing on the floor, if it's slightly stretching out, if it's just kind of a heap of bone that's resting. Maybe you're lucky to get the nerves to kind of relax. They're probably different on one side to the next as far as the response. You don't have to use the blanket under the arm. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody. Some of us. And then finally feeling how that hip responds. Okay, this is going to be really interesting, I think. Okay, so this right hip has either it's stretching with or without sand to the left. So this hip is going to be kind of in the same curve, but we're going to be actually all of our weight on it, our body weight on it, not the sand on it. So the sand is a good prep, right? It kind of gets us ready for that. So I think, yeah, I think that's where we're going with it. Okay. So what I want you to do is you're going to we're going to reposition ourselves in a few moments, but just kind of notice on this point of view, this perspective, how the thigh crosses over. Okay. And it's stretching. You can feel the hip stretch as well. All right, now slide the sand away. Put it over to the left side of you, the sand. All right, and as you come up, I want you to just keep it simple. You're gonna bend the left knee so you kind of kick the bolster a little bit with the bottom leg, and then roll on up. And let's take our bolster next to, well, it's across the mat towards the wall, right? Of course, everything's near a wall. And then add a blanket stack up of a couple blankets or towels, whatever you use for the blanket part, to the other side of the bolster near the wall. Okay. And we're going to need our leg to be just like we had it, right? A few moments ago, it was this way. Now you're sitting on it. So your muscle will have a little tinge of a memory of that, I think. They'll be like, oh yeah, I was just here, but somehow you got rid of the sand on me. So I use a ball under my knee on this one. I definitely find the angle of all the parts is the same. It's just that we flipped it the other way. Now we're sitting on it. We're not laying on our back. So take a sand. Don't get too close to the wall because you don't want to hit the wall with your upper arm, but you do want to have a reasonable amount of reach, not too much, not too little. Maybe I just anticipated I was taller for some reason here, but as you're going to reach, your hand could touch the wall. Some of us aren't big fans of that. We want to have our arm kind of to the floor, touching a block on the ground on the other side. So if you opt for that, just put a block on the ground. I think this is easier my shoulder with the hand at the wall, and I'm actually giving some stretch in my chest. Okay, so if this works for you, go with this. If you do the bones class, right, we usually do this kind of thing with the chair. So that's even better than the wall because you can kind of relax your hand on the chair. But this is a good second. So as my head tries to relax into the blankets, I can feel that sensation through the armpit. Okay, the left knee needs to be safe, so the ball under the inside of the left leg might be really huge here for supporting your alignment. But there are some people that when you even watch them do it, doesn't make sense for their just how their muscles hold things. So some of us are fine with the leg stretching back without the ball. Okay. And our body just looks fine with it. And it feels fine, but you want to find that there's side stretching here. Side stretch with a sigh. Relaxing your eyes. Just take about another 30 to 45 seconds here. Breathing. Okay, now keeping the chest in that open quality, that reach. Okay, we're going to just simply move the sand away from the hip, just push it off. And then as you roll to the right, you're going to come around and let's take a moment here. Hands between the bolster and the blanket. If this is too much on the knees, you can put a blanket under your knees. Yeah, no worries. Just put some padding under the knees. Pretty easy to do. Be sure you're not too close to the wall that you're going to hit it with your head, though. Okay. That would be a real bummer, wouldn't it? Okay, so the hips are going to stretch down the bolster, the hip flexor area, the thigh lids, and then just lift up through the jaw. Try to stretch back into the front of the thighs and feel just the right positioning for your back. Okay. If you've been doing yoga a long time, right, this used to be taught, right, with our hands like at the wall kind of thing, but it's kind of aggressive, I think, in the back. So I'm good with the floor, right? So my hips are extending the front, my thigh band is trying to relax my glutes, so I'm not trying to grip my rear right now, although it's tempting, right, to activate those muscles, but just try to let the front body stretch. Okay. Okay, now we're going to lower down with our elbows on one of the, if you have one blanket, that's fine. If you have two, that might be more comfy, but I've got one under my knees. Just be careful of the wall here. You're going to lower down on your elbows like you're crossing the elbows and let your forehead rest down. Just be aware, you got a wall here, so you don't want to hit the wall. So my elbows are straight out to the sides, forehead down onto the hands or the arms. Okay, now lift up your head. Okay, now you can feel when you lift up in this baby back bend that there's an interesting kind of strange ray of sensation here that pulls in my glutes. It's not quite like I do in a bridge pose where I grip. So you might take a few moments, baby back bend, just lift your head. So you can lift your head without gripping your glutes, I bet. But there are some muscle streams that activate here, which are really great conditioners. So try to lift. Okay, now bring your hands on the floor, elbows by the sides, close enough. Okay, toes under, and then just lift a little bit to push back to table and round your back, chin towards chest into cat. Inhale, arch the spine. Yeah, that sequence is a good one to just play with your reaction to being face down with the bolster under your hips and work with baby back bends, especially if you're healing your back here. So alternate the spine movement. Take a few more moments. Breathe in, arch, breathe out, flex. Okay. Now, those that want to take a down dog, this might be a good moment just to lift up the knees, stretch back in towards the heels. Maybe, maybe not. I like to do this with my arms pushing the bolster, so it's a true restorative when my arms push into my bolster to do the dog, right? To lift up my hips, stretch my heels. Okay, and then as you come down, we're going to come into side sage on the second side. So a sigh into the second side. So make sure you got a blanket stack on the other side. And as I lean in, okay, we're going to hip next to the bolster, ball under the right knee maybe. I know this isn't everybody's thing with the ball. There's plenty of people that just never use it. So it is up to you. But when you lean into it, you're going to want your sand, I think, I'm assuming. Okay, sand on the side of that right. If you're too close to the wall, you'll know. You'll go, oops. I'm going to get a little farther down away from the wall because I want to just touch to the wall and be able to put a little bit of pressure with my hand, right? And lengthen the torso. Using that reach and let the weight of my head relax on the blanket. Okay, if you roll in the back of your head, it might feel like you have a little more ease with the tension cycle kind of from the armpit area. If it kind of takes your breath away, right, you want to kind of adjust until you can work on your side
stretching skills. I mean, you're the one in this that designs the movement in your body, right? You're it's just you. You know, other people give you input, but you have to decide what's going to work for you ultimately. So take some of these things and use them, and some you might add to and be able to share what your ideas are that work better for you. So that's a good reason for us to collaborate on it, I think. But when you do have that range, you want to feel that you're supported by the bolster. So for me, if I roll too much on the back of my head, I start to feel a little grip on the left side of my waist. It's kind of tightening in. So probably being more on my side is going to be ultimately more effective, right? Although it's tight, right? I can feel some of these muscles pulling and reaching. You can always let the right arm be on your side or down on the bolster. It does not have to be at the wall at all. Take a few more moments breathing. Okay, it's going to be kind of fun. I'm kind of layering things today. I'm having fun with sequencing like I do all the time, but we're going to be layering this one eventually into pigeon in the final set here. So what I want you to notice here, and I'll give a modification for pigeon if that's not what you're going to do today as well. But when you are in this position, you can feel how the side of the rib space, my challenge is to keep kind of filling it up, expand, relax. But you can feel that the reach into the hip, the side, everything's lengthening here in the front, right? I'm not trying to turn the thigh outwards yet, okay? But I'll give it a try in a moment anyway. You kind of feel the sand pull your waist a little bit, give it that stretch, or if it's on the hip, it's kind of giving traction. You want to feel like there's more spaciousness in your body from this practice. Okay, now last few moments before we come out of the side. Breathing. Okay. All right, so now when we come around, I want you just to slide the sand kind of, since I'm showing a modification series, some of you might be using the sand. The pigeon ears are not going to use the sand, so you can just drop it to the side. When you come around, see if you can group the mid back muscles with we'll call them the hip back muscles. Okay, group them together like they are rolling and combining into this flexion of the back, and then what we'll do is we'll pull the blankets close to the bolster, okay? So we're gonna have enough space behind the blanket for your legs. So I would not make this too close because you can always get closer to the wall. But if you come up, you're gonna move the ball to the side. I don't think everyone's gonna use the ball, they might. And then let's take a moment. Let's show the modification first, because those that are kind of on question mark on pigeon, it's good to know what your option is, I think, because I like the option. Okay. Right foot is on top of a block. So my block is low. Can't imagine what it would be like if it was at the highest setting for this. Okay, that'd be too much. So my knee is outwards. Now I can put a sandbag on the top of that right. Now keep in mind it's the inner thigh that you're stretching, right? This thigh, you're trying to rotate it out. So if you get a hold of it, one hand below, one hand palm out, you're kind of turning it out. But try to turn it out so it's closer to the hip, it's not the knee. That would hurt. And then I sit and I lean forward. This is my modification. I know it looks pretty simple, and it is. That's the idea, but try to work on just opening the chest, okay? Check that one. Okay, that's one. Otherwise, you're going to put the knee on the ground and the foot near the bolster and stretch the left thigh back. Okay, that's the option. Option one, option two. There actually are others, so if you need another option, you can, I don't know how you tell me. Do you want me to show you the other option? I'll show it anyway, because it's good to know your variations. Now, if you're in pigeon, remember you can use one blanket under your knee or two. I guess I ended up with two. I've heard people really like one.
because they feel like it's easier on their lower back and they feel like they get more stretch. And I think they probably would. I've kind of gotten into the comfort of this one. So my hands are obviously looking like they should do something different. So I can put my elbows on the ground. This will make it definitely a plus, right? I can feel, but it's up to you, right? Elbows could be up on a block set. Okay, now if this is interesting to you, but it just seems a little too much pressure on a part of your leg, it just doesn't feel ideal. You want something different. You can always do seated figure 4 with the right ankle up across the left knee. And you can be seated on the bolster and lean in. This really gets to the point of my lateral rotator here. I can feel that. You can also sit on the ground next to your bolster and lean back, just kind of kick back. This is just great. I love this. I think out of all three, I might like this one the most because it seems like it deeply supports my circulation into my hip. But they're all good, right? I don't think there's one probably better than the other. So some of us that are seated into the forward bend, we're about ready to come out, I promise. But if you are in that forward bend, we're going to join you, those pigeon people. Okay, so the difference is you're going to twist a different way than the pigeon people. So if you're in pigeon, you're here, right knee outwards, right? That's the position for the pigeon people. Now those of us in pigeon are going to come up and we're going to take the left leg, cross it over the right. You can put a sandbag here or not on the right thigh and then hook the left elbow to the right elbow to the left leg, sorry, and then take a twist. Those also our sand on the right side, like we have it here, or our sand on the left side, and twist to the right. Okay, so either way we're twisting, one direction or the other. One way or another, we're twisting. So as we rotate, we want to feel the kind of the width of the base of the body. You want to think wide base, wide center of gravity. And then as you turn right or left, whichever way you go, gently lift up at the heart. And those of us in a seated twist with the sand here on the right thigh, right, we use that as grounding and rooting. Right elbow to left thigh for those of us in the seated spinal. Post pigeon. Okay, now coming out of this twist, those of you in the pigeon first, right, you're going to take the second side, so left leg forward, right leg back. This is for the pigeon. Okay, lean down. Those of you with the modification have the left foot on the block and the right knee out. And then you definitely could use the sand. Now you could use it on either thigh. I think there's a good argument if you need to argue, I guess. This is good, but if your knee is a little unchallenged, I would not put the sand exactly on the side with the knee lifted. You can use a ball under your knee, right? Always comes up on the second side. What could improve it? Okay, but lean forward. All of us are leaning forward. Pigeons are not. Feeling where the spine shape, you can tell if you're seated up on the bolster, the arch of the spine is challenging, right? Because we tend to round, but if you're in the pigeon, you really are going to keep a strong arch. So there is benefit to both, I think. You have to have a little more discipline with the one with the foot under the foot on top of the block. You have to have definitely more discipline to keep the spine strong. Okay, take a few more moments. Okay, and if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to try the other one just because I want to try one more thing, it's different. Left ankle crosses to right knee. And you can tell that if you sit like this, there is I think there's a little danger for some people in the knee pressure. So that's why I like the block under my foot. but you can always try coming down. And if it works for you still and you think, well, it doesn't hurt, then it's okay. Your messages, right, in these nerve-rich areas should give you enough information what's okay and what's not okay. But listen to your body's messages. Okay, now if I'm here in the pigeon, I'm going to come up and cross the right leg over the left and get ready. I'm going to put my sand on the left thigh, right? I'm going to cross it under on the left thigh and twist to the right. If you're lucky, you can touch the wall. And those of us that are in the seated variation with well, we're all seated, but we have our left foot on the block. Maybe you put the sand on the right thigh and you take that twist. Maybe you have the ball under the knee. You take the twist to the left. So you're either going right or left, but feeling that rib spaces right before our last pose, right? So I want you to get a feeling of spine circulation, kind of all the way around the axis of the spine up. There might be some areas that are mysteriously kind of sleepy. So just breathing, rib movement, spine rotation, just the right amount. And also you might even notice how your wrist or your fingers push, there's always something else that you can help out. Okay, now as you unwind, come back center. Okay, let's take a moment here, getting ready to go to the wall. I want you to take the sand away. We're going to take one try for a forward bend. So as you uncross, you're going to come down off of your bolster and you're going to place your bolster against the wall so it's just the edge of it, right? So these are perfectly placed so you can't see, huh? Okay, so I got the short end of my bolster against the wall and I'm going to sit. You could sit on a couple blankets for this. I don't think it's that easy for people to sit without blankets, but mine just aren't there under my rear, so I'm going to try it. So I'm going to tip my bolster up and I'm just going to lean forward. My knees are bending, my feet are on the ground. If you want to go past the width of your mat, that's fine, as long as you don't slip out of it. But lean forward to stretch out the back. Okay. Now some people will have the legs straight, I'm sure, but I don't necessarily feel like that's what I'm encouraging in my hips right now, my thighs. So just take that sweep so the brain has that movement forward. This is more about the brain moving down, forward and down. And now as you lower your bolster, you imagine trying to take legs up the wall with the bolster like this. Okay, turn the bolster across. Let's try. Okay, and then take a blanket near it. And then you might add all things. So if you're not doing legs up the wall, you need to do something more, a little less intense with the leg swing. You can make a bolster bench, right? Your blocks under your bolster, swing the legs up on top. That's really good. But otherwise, let's try Viparita Karani. Let's bring our seat to the wall, have a sandbag nearby, have a blanket if you want to place that on you it's kind of grounding. It may not be something you need for heat right now, but it's definitely grounding. And then lower your shoulder and roll up. If you roll under and that shoulder's a little challenged, you can always try the other side. I don't think it's always about your hip flexibility. It's partially your shoulder mobility to get upside down too. It's kind of an everything, and it's the heart. Some people find they're not quite ready with their heart to relax this way. So they put the legs up on a chair. So if you're able to, and you're like, well, my heart's doing fine, then this is a recommended pose. The only contraindications are eye surgery, some heart conditions, but definitely if you get eye surgery, you can't do this for a while. Okay, bend the knees and then stand on the soles of the feet. Okay. It also, some eye conditions, right? So if you've got questions, this is one to ask. I think in general, right, it's a safe pose, but some eye conditions it would not be. And if you're recovering from abdominal
surgery, you'd have to take a little break on this one because it's an abdominally, it's a strengthener here for the abdominals. Some of us don't really think that, but in Iyengar yoga, this is one of our abdominal strengthening poses. Okay. So if you got an eye pillow, you can place it on your eyes. You can use your natural eye pillows, your eyelids, but you decide if you're going to use a blankie, if you're going to shrug your shoulders. Take a moment or 3 to get settled in. And then as your arms flow out to the sides, let the spine settle. The sand should help your back settle, but at first it might take some time. You know, some of us slide a little bit away from the wall naturally on this one. Be kind to yourself. If that happens, see how you can adjust the pelvis. You know, sometimes I'll surprisingly not want to be that close and I'll just move my bolster a little bit away from the wall and it feels better. So you do need to find what feels okay for you. Even if it's the script is to do this and that, adjust continuously and then see if you can settle into a shape to receive the wellness from this specific integrative pose. Relax the throat. Just weave the movement of the breath with the middle body. Yeah, the pelvis holds an interesting center right now. So you might notice that there's not much movement, friction, or elasticity in the pelvis, right? It's in the ribs. And then the belly body has a lot of support here from the diaphragmatic motion, massaging the organs. And finally, feeling if the legs are indeed resting. If they feel strain, you can always remove the sand and then try again and see how it feels when they rest against the wall. It's sometimes nice to have weightless legs for just a few moments on this one. So if you remove the sand, you might like to just feel, you know, the feet get stepped on. The sand is a relative reminder about that, right? Weight, although it's a good one. But sometimes just letting the feet be feet without being stepped on. Give them a little bit of time to get kind of tingly maybe, so you know the blood has moved all the way out from the feet, down back to the heart, delivering back in towards your heart center. It's a really good gift to give to your heart, just to get the legs upside down. Heart gifts. So simply acknowledging your efforts to be in your practice today, a gift to yourself. And then as you might shift your feet off the wall, you know, if I don't have my sand on the feet, I don't really feel a need to shift them purposely away. I just let the heels slide a little bit down. And then if I have a blanket in my core, I might keep it, I might slide it away. And then just feeling a little bit of movement of my knees side to side. So you choose. The knees might move, the knees might stay smack dab in the middle. And just feeling what the knees are like when they're upside down. Maybe they feel the same in areas that are tender, but maybe it is a nice way to shift your circulation in them. Coming out of this might be a little challenging for a knee, right? So you might have to go to the side that you know is going to be more comfortable. You might be just completely easy with it, but you can feel the chest still stretches a little. And then you just find a way to roll off the shoulder, through the back, and then push to come up. And then once you find your seat again, there it is. Find the leg position that works for you. Maybe, who knows, maybe it's to have them straight away from the bolster. Maybe that's not a one that you want to do with your back. So feeling how the hips place and the hands reaching, interlacing forward away from the heart. Feel the spine gently reach out to the shoulders, and then press into your sitting bones. Bring your hands back to join palm to palm, and inhale together, all of us in this practice. And exhale.